Happy 2024 Fantasy Pros. My name is Andrew Erickson, aka The Props Prophet, and today I'm coming at you with my favorite player props for NFL Week 18. Fantasy football, most leagues are in the books, so how do you get in the action with player props, NFL Week 18 style? But before we look to build that bankroll to invest over the NFL playoffs, you want a chance to win a premium one-year subscription to BettingPros. Your place to start betting smarter and not harder. All you have to do is subscribe to the BettingPros YouTube channel right now, comment below this video, and that is it. We're announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Now, let's get to the best player props for NFL Week 18, where motivation is at the forefront of every single matchup. Terry McLaurin under 4.5 receptions. This one you can get at plus money, plus 110 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. I absolutely love this prop. You know, this is one that the BettingPros prop bet cheat sheet loves this week. Second highest plus EV bet in the prop bet cheat sheet, which you can definitely go check out over at bettingpros.com. Look, Dallas is allowing the 8th fewest receiving yards and 5th fewest receptions per game to wide receivers this season. The fact that you can get this at plus money under 4.5 is easy money. Look, he's gone over this number only 2 times in his last 7 games played. We know Sam Howell has been struggling as of late. Commanders are already looking forward to the 2024 season. They're in competition with the Patriots for that number 2 draft pick overall. So I'm taking the under on Terry McLaurin, especially at plus money. I think this is a really strong bet to start off the prop bets. Next up here, looking at this Cardinals-Seahawks matchup, Ken Walker, running back, over 55.5 rushing yards, minus 120 on DraftKings Sportsbook. If you check over the Fantasy Pros channel, YouTube channel, I actually released a video on prize picks, some of my favorite player props over on that website. And basically, Ken Walker, the prop was 62.5, and I like the over at that number. So now it's even lower. So last week, Walker led the way with 53 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries. He also had 2 red zone carries. Zach Charbonnet only had 2 carries. And Ken Walker is continuing to deal with this shoulder injury. But if he's playing, he's been practicing in a limited capacity this week. I think he's going to gut it out. So, again, the Cardinals' run defense is just so bad that Ken Walker, based on how explosive he is with his legs, I think he can get this in even just a couple carries. I mean, he almost got to 55.5 rushing yards on 10 carries last week. So, look, I think the number is just too low. Arizona, again, is horrible versus running backs. Most rushing yards allowed this season to opposing running backs, right up there with the Denver Broncos. They've allowed at least 61 rushing yards to the last 7 running backs they've faced this season. If you're looking at the BettingPros prop bet cheat sheet, just looking at the projections, Walker's projected for 65.4 rushing yards, putting him well over this total. Back to the unders, though, in the same matchup. James Conner, under 12.5 receiving yards, minus 110 over DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, another matchup that another prop that we've been kind of targeting throughout the year, James Conner. He's just not involved in the passing game to what these numbers are indicating. Look, he's gone over this number twice in 12 games played this season. Like, he's just not a featured receiver in the Arizona offense. He doesn't play on third downs because of Amari DiMercado and Michael Carter also kind of chipping in snaps and running more routes. Look, he ran a route on under 50% of the dropbacks last week. He had 1 target. So I expect him to do the majority of his damage as a rusher against the Seahawks' atrocious run defense, not necessarily get involved as a receiver. He only had 1 target last week, like I said, 5 yards. He's not going to get anywhere near 12.5 receiving yards. So going to pound the under, James Conner receiving yards. Next up, another under here, shockingly. Tai Chandler, running back for the Minnesota Vikings, under 44.5 rushing yards, minus 110 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. Look, Lions defense. Again, one defense, kind of like the Texans this year, where, you know, historically speaking, just terrible against the run. Not this year. Like, this year, they are the elite defense against the run. They've not allowed a running back to surpass 51 yards against them since week 10. Fewest rushing yards allowed per game to running backs at 58.4. Look, Tai Chandler was a nice story. He had a couple nice weeks with Alexander Madison out, but with Madison back, he's not seeing as many carries. And the last time he played the Lions, just a couple weeks ago, he was held to just 17 yards back in week 16. So pounding the under, Tai Chandler under 44.5 rushing yards as the Minnesota Vikings kind of run out of steam here as we close out the 2023 NFL season. Same matchup. Jared Goff over 223.5 passing yards, minus 115 on DraftKings Sportsbook. This number keeps going lower and lower, and I still like the over. I know there are some concerns about, the Lions don't have anything to play for. Well, they do. You know, the Lions are playing both before the Philadelphia Eagles and Washington Commanders play, or the Dallas Cowboys play. So they're not going to know the outcomes of those games because they need to win and have both those teams lose to get the number 2 seed in the NFC. And the way that things kind of shook out last week, I think Dan Campbell is going to have his guys going. He said he's talking about starting all of his starters. They want momentum into the playoffs. And I don't think that's the wrong move. So when you look at the matchup against the Vikings, it's not great in terms of, looking at half the quarterbacks the Vikings have finished under their passing yards projections over the last 13 games. Jared Goff has thrown for less than 275 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. However, the line itself is just so low because of the mystique around, the Lions, maybe they take Jared Goff out if they're winning. But this Lions offense works through the passing game, and the Minnesota Vikings defense is weakest against the pass, not the run. Look, the number is just so low, 223.5 passing yards. He's hit this mark in 3 straight games, and he has hit this number in all 7 of his home games played this season. He has at least 236 passing yards in all of his home games played this year. So I think that the market is just overreacting to a team that, quote unquote, doesn't have any motivation to play. I think Dan Campbell and his 5 shots of espresso in his Starbucks drink are going to get this team hyped up to win their final game at home and roll into the playoffs with some momentum after a sour taste in their mouth after losing against the Dallas Cowboys on Week 17. Next up, Aaron Jones under 62.5 rushing yards taken on the Chicago Bears, -114 over on FanDuel. Look, other than the Lions running backs who basically run against everybody, and Bijan Robinson, shockingly, was used effectively, no running back has rushed for 60 yards versus the Bears defense since week 4. So I'm leaning heavily towards the under at Aaron Jones, 62.5 rushing yards prop this week in week 18. I know he's been on a heater the last 2 weeks. It's been very favorable matchups for him. Last time he faced the Bears, again, it was back in week 1. He did most of his damage as a receiver. That's how you attack this Bears defense, as receiving backs. So I think Aaron Jones will be productive as a receiver out of the backfield, not necessarily as a rusher. I think his numbers overinflated from the last 2 matchups. He was held to just 41 rushing yards last time he faced the Bears back in week 1. So I can go under Aaron Jones, 62.5 rushing yards. Same matchup. Looking at the other backfield, though, Kahlil Herbert, Chicago Bears running back, over 58.5 rushing yards. Look, the Packers are the number 1 run funnel defense in the NFL. Last 6 of 8 running backs Packers have faced have gone over their projected rushing totals. Again, the last 2 running backs haven't necessarily had massive games against them, but it's been the Panthers and the Minnesota Vikings. 2 teams that don't have quarterbacks that have any threat to opposing defense. So Packers were able to halt the runs, and even those running backs were efficient on a per carry basis. Just didn't get enough volume. I think in a more back and forth contest, especially with how good the Bears are at running the football, especially with Kahlil Herbert the last 2 weeks, back-to-back games, over 110 plus rushing yards since he reclaimed RB1 status. Deontay Foreman was healthy scratch last week after being inactive due to personal reasons the week before. Just make sure Deontay Foreman's not playing. Just wait for that healthy scratch and then take the over here on Kahlil Herbert. Look, any game he's seen at least 18 carries, he's gone over 100 yards this season. He also leads the Bears with 12 red zone attempts and targets, but he only has 2 rushing touchdowns in the red zone. So I think that he's actually an interesting candidate for an anytime touchdown. You get that at pretty decent odds. I actually like his odds of scoring the first touchdown in this game. I'm a sucker for first touchdown bets. If you look at the Bears' last 4 games, the first score has actually been a Bears touchdown. So I like the first touchdown for Herbie fully loaded. You can get it around plus 800 odds. And we know that the Packers are one of the slowest starting offenses in the NFL. So I think it would not be surprising at all to see the Bears strike first with a Kahlil Herbert touchdown, fully loaded. Let's go. Next up, looking at the Giants-Eagles matchup, Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver for the Giants, over 29.5 receiving yards, -120 on DraftKings Sportsbook. The Eagles are questionably going to rest their starters. We're not really sure. They're going to probably do some scoreboard watching. So I think they're going to be like, wow, looks like Dallas is up big against the Commanders. Let's pull our guys. Regardless, they're allowing the most fantasy points per game to slot wide receivers this season. Wan'Dale Robinson is the Giants' main slot receiver, and he's been Tyrod Taylor's favorite target this season when Taylor has been under center. Last week, he had the most targets among receivers. He had 23% target share, went 6 for 55, followed by Darren Waller and Saquon Barkley, who also each had 6 targets. But Wan'Dale's been more productive and more targeted over the last 2 weeks. Average 8 targets over the last 2 games started by Tyrod Taylor. It's a matchup that they can obviously take advantage of. Wan'Dale's going to get peppered, and 29.5 receiving yards is not a high bar for him to get over with how involved he is against such a bad pass defense. So going over on Wan'Dale, 29.5 receiving yards. Going ahead to the Sunday night game, we got 2 more props for you guys. James Cook under 64.5 rushing yards. This one's on FanDuel -114. Look, James Cook his usage has been up and down, honestly. Like, he was on a heater. He looked at as like an RB1 in fantasy, but he's only surpassed 65 rushing yards in 2 of his last 5 games played. He has 70 more rushing yards in those 2 games against Dallas and the Chargers in his last 5 games. And the Dolphins are a bad matchup for running backs as rushers, allowing the 8th fewest rushing yards per game to running backs at 77 yards, 3.9 yards per carry, and they have the number 1 lowest explosive rush rate allowed on defense. So they don't give up a lot of explosive runs. And we look at the Dolphins since their bye week in week 10, they've allowed just 2 teams running backs to rush for more than 40 yards against them. And we look at the matchup when these teams first met. The Bills absolutely blew the doors off the Miami Dolphins. James Cook had 29 rushing yards in that game. So even if the Bills take care of business on the road as favorites, it's not necessarily indicative of or suggestive of a big James Cook rushing game. So we can take the under on Sunday Night Football for James Cook. But I am going to be going over here on Sunday Night Football. Dalton King, Buffalo Bills tight end, over 3.5 receptions to get another prop bet that you can get at plus money odds, even odds over at BetMGM. The Dolphins are allowing the 10th most receptions per game to tight ends at 5.1. 8 of the last 11 tight ends to face the Dolphins have surpassed their receiving yards prop. And Kincaid was the leading receiver for the Bills last week, catching 4 of 7 targets for 87 yards. His usage was back up to high route participation at nearly 80%, running around on 80% of the Josh Allen dropbacks. Also played 55% of the snaps. He saw over 120 air yards with a 25% target share. The Week 18 projections have Kincaid for 4.2 receptions this week. I also like his anytime touchdown odds, plus 250. 23% cover probability per the NFL anytime touchdown score research tool. He only has 1 touchdown score on 8 red zone targets this season. So if the Bills take care of business, I think Kincaid is productive and also finds the end zone. And that's going to kind of bow on my favorite player props for NFL Week 18. Thank you all, guys, for tuning in all season long while we've been doing these player props. Hope you had a ton of fun. I've had a lot of fun. But the action does not stop because we have player props heading into the NFL postseason. So look out for those. And again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, share with all your friends. Be sure to follow me over on the BettingPros app. Check out all my bets that I've been placing, whether it's against the spread, player props, unders, overs, especially the unders. You can tail them, you can fade them, you can do whatever you feel is right. Be sure to check out my Prize Picks video over on the FantasyPros YouTube channel for more player props for NFL Week 18. But before you do that, if you want a chance to win a premium 1-year subscription to BettingPros, your place to start betting smarter and not harder, all you have to do is subscribe to the BettingPros YouTube channel right now, comment below in this video, and that is it. Announcing a winner right here on the channel. Make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Thanks for watching, and good luck in NFL Week 18.